Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. We are so excited about our discussion that we're going to have here today, and we're so excited that you all did not think it robbery to join us today at 3 o'clock, because my sister informed me that the Pro Bowl was being played, and I have no idea who's playing. So we appreciate you muting your television to spend a little bit of time with us.
And be in our company.
Yes.
She asked who was playing in the Pro Bowl. We didn't have enough time for me to run down everybody.
I have no idea. I keep trying to tell Ira, you have got to school me. I know a little bit about defense and offense and a touchdown and defensive line. I know a little something, so I'll be able to contribute, hopefully, to the conversation. But, you know, as we always start our show out with, I always like to start with scripture because that's just it. So I want to go with Proverbs 27 and 17, and this is from the Amplified Bible version. It says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens and influences another through discussion. Let me read that again. As iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens and influences another through discussion. And that's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to have a guest, our first company, in fact. He is on his way, and his name is Eric Tyrone, and he is going to help us expound on the discussion of trust versus a will. Because last week when we talked about that, we got a lot of traction and a lot of questions. So we thought it would just be so appropriate to have him here today.
Yes, and I'd like to welcome you all for being our company today. We appreciate you being our company every Sunday at 3 o'clock. I am your favorite host, Sherelle Higgins, and I am here to help not only school Sharon on who's playing in the Pro Bowl, but also to help pass on valuable information that we can all benefit from, because we all need to make sure that our life and our paperwork is in order. So when it is our turn, we don't know the day or the hour, but we do know it's coming. We want to make sure our family don't have to bicker with each other, and they don't have to stop talking to one another because somebody took mommy's stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, I am Dr. Sharon Cradle, and I am the oldest of this dynamic duo. And I'm more often than not the cool, calm, and collected one. You know, I'm going to bring it to you straight, but it's going to have a little chaser.
I was trying to be calm, cool, and collected today on that soccer field, y'all, but this guy took me to a place.
Well, what happened?
Me and my husband was about to go in.
What do you mean?
He took us to a place. I went and stood by the 50-yard line for the second half, and this guy told me to go stand back over where I came from. I was like, who you talking to? I'm not going anywhere. And he was like, you need to go over there. I was like, I ain't going nowhere, and you better stop talking to me. Mm-hmm. And then I moved to the side, and he stepped in front of me. And then I moved to another side, and he stepped in front of me again. And I was thinking to myself, oh, it's about to go down. And so my husband came up behind me, and he walked up to the dude. He was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Uh-huh. And the guy was like, why you touching me? He was like, I ain't touch you. And then the argument ensued. Oh, really? The referee stopped the game. Oh. And they were saying they were going to just stop the guys from playing the game. And I didn't even care at that point, because at this point, this man was trying to intimidate me and trying to exude his power over me, and I wasn't having it. And as the argument ensued, I was like, okay. One of the parents came over to me and said, this guy don't know who he messing with. Sherelle ain't easily intimidated, and she ain't gonna back down. So they broke it up. They continued the game, and after we kind of stepped off, my husband had a chair on his back with an umbrella in it, and I took the umbrella out the chair, and I was like, "Cause this dude tripping, and he gonna get poked in his eye with this umbrella if he don't watch his step."
Goodness. Well, and that's a whole different conversation that we can have later on about people trying to exude their power over someone else through intimidation or whatever. And it is real out here with that. And of course, I definitely have a story about that from many years ago. And how you just have to walk in your strength and your boldness and not walk in fear and handle your business when you need to handle your business. And that's just the bottom line. And so as we shared with you last week, we're going to collectively add a little bit of old school flair in an authentic and fresh manner on the topics that we're bringing today that concerns us in our community, and just some things that we need to talk about. And the only thing I want to say, one thing, and I'm going to put this out there, ladies, and for the men, we're going to talk about some menopause, y'all. Because I'm
Let's
about
talk
to burn
about
up
it.
in this camp. I don't know if they got the heat on or what, but I'm trying to look professional. But so when the sweat started rolling down and I just pat, it's all good because it is what it is.
And just know that you're gonna go through it too. Yes. Both men and women.
Yes. And so we always talk about our preparation, and I think I wear Sherelle out talking about how we're going to prepare for the show. And so I told her that when, as a teacher, when I would go and observe teachers, they always had to start the class with some kind of recap of what was learned yesterday. And so we're going to do a little recap from last week for those who weren't there, those who listened and probably just forgot, because sometimes things bear repeating for us to commit it to our memory. And so, Sherelle, I think you wanted to talk about when you know better, you do better.
Oh, absolutely. And because of the show that we, last week, we were talking about the living trust and the wills, quite a few people reached out to us to say that they were interested in hearing more about it and learning more about it. And so this is what this platform is all about. This platform is about sharing information and helping each of us do better, because we all need to do better. And so, Margaret and Cookie, because you all were two of the people who asked about this, we're going to make sure that we feed you the information that you so desire to help you make informed decisions.
And we have the perfect gentleman here who we can put you in contact with, actually, who is going to give it to you real and in a way that makes sense about why we need to do this to take care of our loved ones. The other thing that we talked about last week, and I didn't really get a chance to say anything about it, is about preparing for retirement. Retirement is coming to many of us so very soon, and some of us are already retired. And so one of the things outside of, putting a trust together, Ira and I took advantage of the lower interest rates some years ago and refinanced our house down to 15 years. Now, that's a sacrifice because, the mortgage went up. But when we started doing the math in terms of our age and retirement, we were like, let's make this happen. And the reason that we want to make it happen, because I have many discussions with folks who say, I am not worried about paying off a house. And I just have a different little mindset about that, because I just think that we have to get into a mindset of leaving something to our family, because that's the only way that they're going to build wealth. When they need somewhere to go, they'll have somewhere to go. And Ira kind of pushed me into that because he is very serious about that, and it just makes sense to me. And so that's just what we did to try to pay this house off earlier. And then once we, wherever God tells us to go, if we have to go somewhere, then we're clear and free of that debt. We don't have to worry about that debt. And so, as we talked about last week with the trust, it costs to get a trust, but you have to make the sacrifices up front. I don't sacrifice on a whole lot of things, but things that make sense to me, I do make that sacrifice, like the trust and paying off the house, but some other things, I'm like, okay.
Can't sacrifice it all.
Yes, and in this market, there's no guarantee that your house is going to sell, and so many people have experienced that we know, some loved ones of ours, some dear friends of ours. Your house is just, there's just no guarantee. And if it does sell, this is a buyer's market, and so people are going to lowball you and try to get the best deal for them and their family. They're not really thinking about you because you're the one trying to sell the house.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in a different space because as soon as I retire, I am packing up and moving as far away from the DMV as I can get. I'm going to a warmer climate, a tax-friendly state, and a warm year-round state. So I have.
Does that exist anymore?
Oh, it
Warm
absolutely
year-round
does.
states? Where?
Oh,
Where is
absolutely.
that?
Right now, Tennessee is leading the pack.
But they still getting snow. I thought they had 4 seasons in Tennessee. Phoenix,
yeah.
Arizona?
It's too hot in Phoenix. I might melt.
I know.
So I'm doing my research now so that when the time comes, I can be prepared. I want to go to a low cost of living area where I can invest my money in my house and pay that house off so that, it's available if my kids choose to live in Tennessee.
Yes.
If not, they'll probably just argue about whether they should sell the house or not, because that's how that go down too.
Absolutely. And so for us, it's a little different situation because Ira is a vet. And so, when we can probably go a lot of places actually, but for this particular area for veterans, it's just a great place to be because you have so many options of hospitals and, the public transportation and everything. And so, and we just happen to love the DMV. And so, you have to make that decision for yourself and your family and what's best. But it's easier to make that decision once your house is paid off and you have your affairs in order. It just is. And so we wanted to just kind of recap from that last week. And the other thing is we got quite a few comments because I did a presentation yesterday with some children about image. And last week I talked about don't disappoint your public. And so a lot of people have reached out to me saying they like that. And so it just means that when you step out, you represent your family's name. You're representing who you are. You're representing God. So just don't disappoint your public because you don't know who is looking at you and just need that little bit of push or encouragement just by looking at you to say, okay, I can do this. I'm going to get myself together today. And so that's what don't disappoint your public means.
And my husband went out last night to a club to listen to a local go-go band, and he said that there was this woman in the club, looked like she just rolled out of bed, had her scarf on her head, and just showed up at the club. And so, that right there, last week we talked about saving our hairdos. And if you don't save it if you're not saving it for when you go to the club, I'm not really sure where you're going, that you need to wear your scarf to the club so that your hair is ready for the next day. I'm not really sure what that's about.
And had I been there, I probably would have approached it a little differently. I probably would have engaged in a conversation with her just because people show you outwardly how they're feeling and what's going on in their lives. And so that's why we have to be so very careful with each other because people show you how they're feeling. And I probably would have just walked up to her and said, hey, beautiful, how are you? And just struck up a conversation with her. And trust me, I probably would have gotten the whole story and she probably just needed a hug. And she was probably just trying to get away from somewhere. And so that's just how I kind of roll with people. When I think about and I look at people demonstrate to you through their behaviors and how they look that they are feeling some kind of way and they're trying to give you a message. And she's probably saying, help me, somebody, please help me, please see me. And so, that's one of my gifts. And so I know that. And so that's how I would have probably approached her, actually.
My husband also was showing me these videos of this black guy who he's a comedian and he has this thing called Look at You. And it was a lady at the Red Box getting a movie. She actually had a sheet wrapped around her at Red Box. And he was like, I just don't even know what to say. All I can say is just look at you. Just look at you. Like you didn't have time to put on a pair of sweatpants and a shirt, nothing. Like you just going to show up at Red Box with a sheet wrapped around you, And so we really need to just kind of think about how we present ourselves to the public. If you're in your house and you want to look tore down, okay. But when you come outside your house, just go ahead and make the effort, to make yourself look presentable.
And what I know is that emotional hurt and mental illness is real. And so, we want to make sure that we're helping people to help themselves, because some people cannot help themselves. And so that's just very, very important to me. And so when I say don't disappoint your public, I'm talking about people who have the means and they know better. That's all. That's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so we're going to engage in sister chat, and we're asking you all to call in, please, and, share your comments or thoughts, or even ask us questions at any time during the show. The number is 833-202-8255, 833-202 8255.
Yes. So you want to go into sister chat now?
Absolutely.
All right. So for sister chat today, we're going to talk about women and relationships with each other.
Part 1.
And we're calling it part 1 because we're going to follow up on this conversation.
Yes, we are.
We're going to definitely talk about, what does supporting one another look like? Why is it important? How do we do it? And what happens when we find ourselves in a situation where people, or particularly other women, are not supporting us? Should that impact how we approach women and provide non-support to other women? The fact that you all are chiming in with us every Sunday at 3 o'clock shows us that you support us and you believe in this platform that we have for you, and for us as well, because we're going to learn from you just as much as you learn something from us. One of the things we just don't do enough of is support one another. So many people have said to me, "Oh my God, I can't believe you and your sister are doing a show together."
That is amazing to people.
And I'm just so glad to see y'all working together to do not only the show but also the women's conference.
Yes.
And so if you can't support your sister, I just don't know where did the breakdown happen?
Right.
And you need to reevaluate yourself. You need to decide what's really important, because here's the truth of the matter. If my sister passed tomorrow, I do not want it to be over no foolishness that we were not supporting each other and we weren't speaking.
We were stubborn.
Exactly.
Right, absolutely.
You can't expect people to always do things the way that you think they should do it. You can't expect, and they can't expect you to do it the way that they would do it. People can offer their opinions, but that's what it is, just that, an opinion.
That's it. Absolutely. And let me just offer you just a little piece of advice. And this advice actually is in my book, Mind Your Mind, #think about it. Sometimes you have to be the bigger person in the situation. So if you find yourself, a girlfriend that you grew up with, she's like a sister and you are all no longer speaking, or your biological sister, even your parents, or, whatever it is, I say to you, just say to them, something? I really have something I need to talk to you about. I apologize. I apologize for waiting this amount of time to bring this conversation to you. So I have a role to play in this relationship because I never said anything to you about how that made me feel when you did X. So what I want to do is I just want to resolve this relationship because it means so much to me. So I'm asking you to forgive me for not saying anything to you beforehand. And when you do that, it breaks down the barriers because you're not going to that person and accusing that person of doing anything. What you're saying is you're taking ownership of that situation. And so, they may not want to hear it, but you've done your part, and that's all you can do is your part.
Yes, and we said we was gonna have some real talk on here. I'm about to give y'all some real talk.
All right, let's go for it.
I ain't ready yet. I'm a work in progress on that one. If you stop speaking to me, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it, especially if I know I haven't done nothing to you and you stop speaking to me, I'm cool with it because here's what I know. People are only put in your life for a season, and maybe your season is over. And so maybe you know that your season is over. And so I might have been the last one to know that the season is over, but once I get a clue, I'm cool with it. Mm-hmm. I have no ill will towards you. I have no hatred for you. I would never say anything bad about you. But in terms of me calling you up, apologizing for something I did not do, I'm not there yet. I'm a work in progress.
Well, I think Sherelle missed a portion of what I said.
Maybe I did.
if the relationship is important to you. See, that's the key. If the relationship is important to you, then I say, just like you said, any of us, the next moment is not even guaranteed.
That's
and so,
right.
Do you want to be in a relationship with somebody that you love and you all are not talking, and you have to go to that person's funeral, right? And then people start asking you, well, what made you all stop talking? And you think about it, and you're like, to be very honest with you, I don't know.
I'm just gonna
saying,
say she stopped talking to me.
Yeah.
So apparently the relationship wasn't important to her. So
I just believe that somebody
work in
has to
progress.
be. Yeah, I can work with that. I just believe that somebody has to be the bigger one in the situation. That's all.
I agree with that, but I'm just not there yet.
Yes. And so
I'm working on it, though. I'm working on it. I promise you I am.
I think you got a lot of people in your amen corner. Help me out, people. Help me out.
Hey, you got to know who you are, and you got to be willing to, talk about what your flaws are. And that's a flaw of mine.
Yes.
I'm not ready.
Yes.
Not on that one.
And so when we come back to this conversation next week, I want to kind of just set it up for you. Many of you all are aware that Sherelle and I come from a basically all-female family. And so we really want to talk about that in terms of growing up with dominant women, growing up in a situation where there were very few men to kind of guide us in the direction of, how to have a relationship with a man and all of that. And because people are like, well, how can you all be so successful in marriage when you really didn't have that many great examples? So we want to really talk about that and the relationships that we had with each other growing up and well into adulthood. And so when we come back next week, we are going to have that conversation. So get ready.
Yes, and we've both been married a very long time.
Yes.
I've been married 26
Twice.
years. You want to count up all of it, or you just want to count on this one?
It's authentic and real.
Okay.
My first marriage was 4 years. We'll talk a little bit about that. And this marriage has been 21 years.
And so we have some experience with this marriage thing. I've been with my husband 34 years, so I got some stuff to tell you about.
Yes. So what we're going to do is get ready for a break. And when we come back from the break, we're going to introduce our company, Eric Tyrone. And some of you all have asked me about the CD, the song that's being played. It is my song, Woman, Thou Art Great, Women Sharpening Women. And if you would like to purchase a copy of it, you just go to my website, drsdc-corporation.org, and it's an actual CD. So let me just tell you about it. The first one has all of the lyrics. The second song is just the background lyrics, and the third song is instrumental. And the reason I did it that way is so that people could use the song as they feel appropriate for the event that they're having. So you may want to have an event where the music alone is just playing in the background. So that's how I set it up. So it is available on my website.
Okay, so we're going to go to break. We're going to take about a minute or so, and then
Right.
we're going to come right back with our company.
Yes. Welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It live show. Hosted by me, Dr. Sharon Cradle, and Sherelle Higgins. We will be discussing intriguing, intricate, inspirational, informative, and intelligent topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3:00 p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it.
Welcome back, everyone. As you are aware, we have our first company, and we're so excited about this. We have Eric Tyrone. I'll tell you a little bit about him in a minute. But this segment that we're going to talk about is called Let's Talk About It. and it's something that we really need to talk about. And so we're just appreciative of you being here, Eric. And I'll tell you a little bit about Eric. Eric is the founding partner of the Tyrone Law Group, LLC. And he's an Omega man. He's a friend of my husband's and our family. And I'm going to let him kind of tell you a little bit more about himself. And then we're going to just engage in the conversation about trust and wills.
All right. Hi, guys. Hello, everybody. I know it's radio isn't my medium, so I don't know where to look. So
right there,
there you go. All right, there you go. Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Yes.
So just a little bit about me. Again, they stated Eric Tyrone, born in Austin, Texas, to an Air Force officer. Moved around a lot between Austin and Colorado Springs. Moved up to Syracuse, New York, and back to Texas for high school. Went to undergrad in New York City at Columbia University, and went to law school at the University of Wisconsin, and then moved after law school, moved down here to the D.C. area, and opened up my own firm eventually.
Yes, and we are so very proud of him, and he is very knowledgeable. And I would not even have him on the show because any of you all that know Ira, he's a very analytical guy, and he's trust is very important to him in relationships. And so when he invited him to our house, I knew that it was something very significant and special about this gentleman. And so that's how we feel by having you as our company here today, that you are special and significant. So we've kind of set them up already to tell them that we discussed and entered into a trust with you. Yes. And can you talk to our audience about just the basic differences between a trust and a will, and then we'll just engage in that conversation.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think a lot of people hear that you need to have a will before you pass, but a lot of people don't understand why. Understand what's the importance, what having a will, number what it is,
right?
How it helps, and what is the difference between a will and a trust. So I'd say the first thing, I'll pull it back and not just a will, but let's just talk about estate planning.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So dealing with estate planning, the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, and why. Who should do estate planning? Mm-hmm. Everybody.
Yes.
I mean, if you're grown, you need estate planning, right? So you can't sit back and say, I'm a grown man or I'm a grown woman and not have estate planning because you need it. I think the reality is there is, if you do not choose to do your own estate planning, the government's got a set of plans that have already set for you. Now, that doesn't mean if you pass, somebody's going to come in and say, Sister Tracy gets the couch, and Tanya gets the TVs, and Monique gets the beds. That's not what it is, but I mean, basically it divides it, okay? And so every state is different. And so, if you have a husband, a wife, and 3 kids, right? If the husband passes, then he's left for issue, okay? And a lot of states handle it different. Some states say the wife gets half, the children split the rest. Some states say the wife gets a third, the children split the rest. Some say a wife gets a third and everybody splits it, right? So there's a whole bunch of different ways. So depending on the state that you're in would determine exactly how it's handled. Well, if that is a plan that's sufficient for you, then fine. Maybe you don't need a will. But if not, right, then if that plan isn't going to work, then you want to be able to control it. If you want to do something different, if you've done a great job of actually creating your own generational wealth, you've done life insurance, you've done 401k, you've done retirement planning, you've actually got a savings accounts, you've got a house, you've got maybe even rental property. What happens to those assets? Do you want them all? Do you want to force that they're all sold and divided out in that manner, or do you want to actually control it and say, all right, I want my children to be able to live off of this for a while? Well, if you want some control, then you need to have estate planning. Yes. Okay, so you need to actually go and make the decisions to go and do something other than whatever the state says it's going to do.
So the first lesson here is, what does your state say?
Right.
Exactly. Right. Where do you live? That's what you need to write down. Take some notes. What does your state say about if let's say the husband precedes you in death, wife, and you have children, you need to know the laws in your state.
Absolutely. So that's the first who,
The
then
who.
the what. What is estate planning? Okay,
Yes.
so estate planning, you can have will-based estate planning, you can have trust-based estate planning, you can have no estate planning, all right? And there's a whole bunch of things in between.
Yes.
But the idea is, you create a will that says, hey, when I died, here are my assets, and here's who I want to bequeath them to. Here's who I want to give them to. Here is what I want to have happen. I want to name this person as my administrator. I want to say this is the person that's going to be responsible for doing this.
Right.
And this is the person that I trust is actually going to fulfill my wishes. Now, if you know somebody, if you wouldn't trust somebody with a bag of Skittles,
That's right. Tell
don't
the
name
truth.
them as your administrator.
Tell the
That's
truth.
exactly
All right,
right.
so we all know people that, look,
Yes.
we wouldn't trust them further than we threw them.
That's
Right.
right.
But you don't name them as your administrator just because they're your oldest son.
That's
Right.
right.
All right, or your oldest daughter, okay? Because
Yes.
we all know we have some trifling folks in our family.
Yes,
and
we
if they're
do.
trifling, then that's fine. And let them be trifling and live in their own truth.
That's
Because she's
right.
been dealing with her truth a little bit today. So let's let them deal in their own truth
right.
about their trifling selves. You just don't appoint them to be responsible for your stuff because
That's
it's going
right.
to affect you. It's going to come back and hurt you in the end.
Yes.
Okay, and so that's will-based planning. Trust-based planning is a little bit different.
Yes.
All right, the aim behind trust-based planning is, in part to avoid the probate process, okay? And we'll go back to exactly what probate is, but one big thing is to avoid the cost and expense of a probate process. And so if you don't want to have to go through that process, you're essentially trying to retitle all of your assets away from yourself into your trust, okay? Because
Say that again.
All right. So you want to, the aim is to retitle all of your assets away from yourself personally into your trust, okay? Because the trust does not die with you.
Correct.
So if you pass, you're not actually transitioning and leaving anything to anybody else because the trust owns everything.
Right.
And the trust doesn't die with you. So if the trust is properly funded, then you don't have to worry about having, to have to go through that probate process. Okay. And so we'll back up and talk about what is the probate process.
So we
okay?
have two lessons here. The who,
There we are. The who,
and
the what.
and the what.
Okay.
And being very honest, do not appoint someone as your executor of your estate or to manage your affairs out of guilt.
Right.
Make sure it's someone that you trust that will do the right thing based on what you would like them to do.
Right.
And make sure that it's somebody who have already accumulated their own stuff. Because if they don't have no stuff, then you can't expect them to give away your stuff to
My
the
God.
people that you have designated to
Wow.
receive your stuff.
Wow.
And you certainly can't you can't necessarily afford or say that they are going to allow life when
Right.
life happens is going to have happened to them, and they couldn't control it enough to make sure that they've gotten to a position. So they may
Yes.
life might end up taking place, and
Right.
they've got a new set of assets to
That's
be able
right.
to help them get through life.
Right.
So that's absolutely real. Okay, so now here's the question: we've done the who and the what. Do
Yes.
we go when, where, why, or do we talk about probate? Which way do we go?
Let's talk about probate, because I think I want to make sure people understand what that is. And then we have a
let's talk about
question
probate.
that I'm going to ask Philip Brame to call in to ask that question.
Okay. Okay. So
Probate.
probate. All right. So probate process is the process designed to transfer assets from one generation to the next. Okay. And so if you want to be able to trust that the house that you buy is actually going to be yours, and it's not you're not gonna have cousin Tammy, Tina, Tanya, and Tracy coming to go fight and say, no, that's not your house, that's my daddy's house.
Right.
I was just living down in Tennessee, and I've come back, and that's my daddy's house. You don't own this house, and now
Yes.
I want to go fight that. Well, the way the government does one part of it is the probate process will assign somebody who is trustworthy, or if they're not trustworthy, they've got an insurance policy to support their trustworthiness, right? So you've got somebody that is trustworthy that is making sure that they've collected all the information about what it is that you owned when you died, and they've presented it to a judge and say, here's what they owned, here's what their assets were at the time of death, this is their financial snapshot at their time of death, and here's what their wishes are. Here's either what their will said, or here's what the state's will said if they did not have a will.
And I think that is powerful, not to interrupt you, but I think that's powerful what you just said. Can you give us an example?
Sure.
And I think when we met, you talked a little bit about Prince and Michael Jackson or someone. I can't remember who it was. Just give us a little bit about that and how it relates to probate.
Okay, so let's talk about Prince, because he is such an exceptional case. All right, so the last I looked at this, he had approximately, I think they said $300 million. Okay, so that's a really big estate. And as I remember it, there were a bunch of brothers and sisters that he had, half brothers and half sisters. And then there were a whole bunch of people that were trying to claim that they were his brothers and sisters or half brothers and sisters. I mean, there were people in Kansas said, Papa was a Rolling Stone. He came down here one night down here to Kansas, and, he got my mama pregnant. Prince is my brother, right? So the idea behind, Prince is because he did not have a trust or a trust-based planning, and with a $300 million asset, that's more like foundation, right? He should have had a foundation, right? Such that his assets were not owned by him. Okay, they shouldn't have been owned by him. They should have been owned by the foundation, such that when he dies, the foundation stays alive, such that I don't know all the details of his estate, right? I shouldn't be able to pick up just go to Google and say, how much do we say is the value of this estate? Who are his heirs? And get all personal, get into his business, all right? So probate is designed to be an open process, not closed. Right. So they've got to report this to a judge. It is easily available. You can go into the courthouse and go pick up this information and actually find out more details. We're all available to that. Yes. If you don't want everybody all in your business like this, then do something different.
That is right.
Because you have the ability to control this right now.
It's about control and being accountable to your family. We have our first caller, if you don't mind. We'll go ahead and take a call.
And please remember not to have Listen Vision live. The volume on, turn the volume off.
Please forgive me, it is a little warm here, so that's why I'm sweating. So don't.
Hello, this is
just nervous because he's
Sisters in Company talking about it. Can I help you? Hello. Thank you for calling. For some reason, you're on my. Hold on. For some reason, you're on my cell phone, and I don't know why. So let us switch it out. That was odd. I know it's odd. That's just odd. Are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Hi, sorry about that.
Okay, great. So I'm not going to waste too much time. On the death taxes, do they apply to trust and or wills, or what is a death tax? And can you explain, do they apply to trust?
Come on now, Uncle Sugar's going to get his regardless, okay? Uncle Sam will not relent. So it's death and taxes. So yes, taxes are going to definitely apply. Now, there are ways that trust-based planning has some ways of avoiding or at least being able to allocate some assets and set them aside such that they are not subject to tax. But the idea is, and if you're concerned about it, you want to speak to somebody to create a plan and use a lot of different methods to be able to create your estate, right? So for example, if you know that there's going to be $1 million worth of taxes that are going to be taken out based on the value of your estate, well, there's insurance. There are ways you can use insurance to be able to support that, and a lot of different ways. But the idea is you have to plan. You have to start planning early. But yes, death taxes will take effect, and they are subject. The trusts and wills are both subject to Uncle Sam.
Absolutely. Thank you for that call. Who are we speaking with, if you don't mind sharing your name?
Oh, Philip Bryan, you just hollered me out. I didn't know Sherelle was looking at me kind of crazy, but yeah, it's Philip.
Oh, hey, Philip. How are you? Thank you for calling from Chicago. Thank you for that.
Thank you, ladies. You all doing a wonderful job. Thank you, my brother.
Thank you. That was a good question. Thank you for calling.
So we've done the who, the what. We've talked about probate. Let's talk about when. Okay, when do you create your estate plan?
Yes.
There's a lot of people that say, look, I'm going to go live down in Tennessee. I'll take care of this when I get down to Tennessee because it's not important right now. I don't have nothing. When I get down to Tennessee, that's when I'm going to get my house and get my estate, and that's when I'm going to do it. I would disagree with that. I would say do it like
Now.
the real idea is like real estate. Do it 5 years ago. The best time to get into real
Yes.
estate was 5 years ago. It was a while back. So if you can't do it 5 years ago, do it now.
Yes.
Okay. And so the idea is have the plan, right? Or at least get the information. Once you have the information, you can make an informed decision about whether you choose to take it or not. But at least have the information to understand what are the ramifications of me making some type of decision.
So let me ask you this then. So from your experience, what's the hesitancy with people not planning for their estates, estate
Absolutely.
planning? What's
Look,
been some challenges?
I mean, I think probably some of it is cultural, right? Because I mean, it's just like we don't want to talk about death because if we talk about death, then it's going to come. It's going to happen. We don't want to talk about divorce because if we talk about divorce, then it's going to happen. No, that's not real, right? That's not true. If you're going to get divorced, you was going to get divorced.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely.
It wasn't going,
and you're going to die.
Right. That we know, right? That's exactly what we
No
know.
doubt
So,
about it.
I mean, I think a lot of times, I mean, one thing that when I do the seminar, I say, running from it will not save you.
Right.
Okay, the 10 things your mother didn't teach you and your father didn't talk about a proper estate plan. Okay, and so the reality is, why don't we talk about this? I don't know. Some of it is fear. Some of it is
A lack of knowledge.
lack of knowledge.
Don't even
right?
know what questions
Right.
to ask.
And-
Too
and-
embarrassed to ask
and
because
they
it's
say
something
it's
you
not
think you should
for
know.
me. It's not for
Right.
me. It's for, Big Mama created her will, 6 months before she died, and everything worked out with her. So that's what I'll do when I'm getting ready to die. But the reality is, we don't know when we're gonna
No, you
pass,
don't.
right?
You
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I mean, I just crossed the street to get over
That's
here.
right.
Right.
And I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
That could've been your turn.
I look left and look right, but what happens if chaos happens? And
Yes.
that could have been my turn.
And
so
that's the reality.
Yes, absolutely.
And like you said, government, whether it's state or federal, they're going to get their portion. And how much of it do you really want them to have? Because they get enough from us already. And death, that really should be to take care of your family and generations to come behind you.
So that's the who, the what, the when. When,
Yes.
as soon as you can, while you actually have the ability to do it.
Yes.
Because here's another thing. A lot of
Oh,
people
goodness.
have, mental illness,
Yes.
and, they get old, right? People say, they went senile, they, dementia, Alzheimer's, right? You got a
Yes.
whole bunch of different things that control your mental capacity and the ability for you to make the decisions at some point. So the aim is do what you can while you can, because once you're diagnosed as
say
having
it.
dementia and having Alzheimer's, then there's nothing you can do. And I get calls all the time. Big Mama's on her deathbed. She's had
Yes.
Alzheimer's for 3 years, and she is in the hospital. We got to take care of her affairs. Can you
Yes.
come down and write this will up and get it drafted? No, I can't do that. And no, you don't want to pay for me to do that. You don't want to
Right.
pay for me to have to, get all my staff togetger and come and get down to your office, bring in new, portable printers and, all these different things to try to draft up your, will and your powers of attorney and get everything signed and notarized and have all that stress that you're causing by not doing it when you can, when we can do it at our own leisure.
And Eric just mentioned again, power of attorney. Make
Yes.
sure somebody has power of attorney
Oh, we
and
gonna talk
medical
about it.
medical power
Oh,
of
we're
attorney.
going to talk about the healthcare directive and the power of attorney. We're going to talk
Yes.
about all of those because you can lose the ability to do something. You can lose the ability to take care of your own health. You can lose the ability to take care of your medical care.
Yes.
And so, or in your financial documents. So it's saying, if you do, who is it that you designate that is going to be the person to take care of your medical documents? Now, again, if you don't trust this person with a bag of Skittles, do not make them your power of attorney,
Yes.
because they're now basically saying, this person is me. They
Right.
can walk into a bank with this document and they can go get all my money out, and they can allow life to go ahead and take care of whatever's happening, right? They can go sign, they can go take out mortgages, they can go
Yes.
do all kinds of things, and all kinds of chaos can and will happen. That I
Absolutely.
can promise you.
And actually,
Absolutely.
And one of the things I know Sherelle and I are going to touch on from a human resources perspective is making sure your paperwork at your job
Is in order.
is in order.
Designate those beneficiaries.
Those beneficiaries, because there's some stories, some horror stories out here that people never changed their beneficiaries, and people that they did not want to get that money ended up getting that money because the job cannot say, well, you know,
Anything.
anything.
Just period.
They just
can't
have to
say
give
anything.
it to who the beneficiary is. So make sure you're checking your paperwork. And the other thing too that I want to mention is about banks, bank accounts, and making sure that you know the difference between an owner and somebody who has signatory ability on your account, because it matters in terms of when you have siblings and you know who owns the account, who can go and say, you know, this is what I want to happen with this money when someone precedes the other in death.
And let's talk about one tip right here. By
Yes.
the end, I hope to give you 2 tips
Good.
that will save you time, energy, and money. All right. Tip number 1. The first is I'm going to talk about this. The second is proper estate plan. So if you can
Yes.
write down proper estate plan.
Proper
right?
estate plan.
Because if I can get you
Write it
to
down.
understand what a proper estate plan is, I can teach you in a couple of minutes how to at least check to make sure you have a proper estate plan. Okay.
Yes.
So the first tip is, and this will save you so much money. Okay. If you have a cash account, okay, that means a checking account, a savings account, money market, stocks, bonds, whatever. If you have a cash account, you must have a live beneficiary on that account.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so what does that mean? That means if I am a 50-year-old person and I've got my mother as my beneficiary on my account, she's 25, 27, 30, 40 years older than me, and she's still alive, and that's okay while she's still alive. But when she dies, if there's nobody as a named beneficiary on that account, whatever I had in that account automatically becomes probate property.
Oh no, we don't want that to happen.
So, and once you die, all that money is frozen. And the reality is
access
nowadays
it.
with technology, it's better than what it used to be, because what used to happen is people would pass, they would send somebody down to the bank first thing in the morning
They
and go
sure
clean,
did.
take the assets out and go
Yes.
make sure that we at least have access to them.
Yes.
Well, that's pretty much, for the most part, that's going to be stopped, right? So the idea is if you have a named beneficiary, it does not completely guarantee that those assets are not probate property, but it puts it in a strong, that's a great start, okay? So at least if you have somebody else, if you have a live named beneficiary on your accounts, those are assets that you can avoid the probate process. If you don't know, I mean, we've all seen people that have had to pass the hat in order to get somebody buried.
Yes. GoFundMe.
Well,
Yeah, you
but the
know what we're
person
talking
actually had assets, right? You got GoFundMe. The person had assets
That's
to have
right.
them buried, but because everything was frozen, you didn't get a chance to do it.
Right.
If you have a named beneficiary, it may be able to help avoid that process.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, how long generally is probate? With that whole process?
It's going to start at a year, okay?
Oh my.
You can almost guarantee that it's going to start at a year, okay? Because, depending on where you go, if you're dealing with somebody that has a small estate, right? So well, not most, but there are some communities, let's just talk about Maryland, okay? In Maryland, anything under $50,000 is a small estate. Okay, so if you're saying if you have more than $50,000 or you have real property, now you're dealing with a large estate. So if we're saying anything under $50,000, that's going to be a small estate. Those are going to be able to be done much quicker. But anything that's a large property, if you actually have a house, you can almost guarantee it's going to be at least a year before it's done. Now, that's if you have your ducks in a row and everything aligned and there is no problems and there's no contest and there's no fight. And but the reality is, it takes a year and a half to 2 years to get a lot of these different probates done. It just does, to sell property, to get everybody to agree. Now, imagine if you
Yes.
have brothers and
Yes.
sisters,
Yes.
right? You got the oldest brother who's like, look, I'm the oldest brother. I'm supposed to be the one that makes the decisions. But he's not good at making decisions
And never have been.
or timely.
Right.
And we'll not do
And
it
he's
this
not
time.
even in the state, right?
is
So he
right.
doesn't even live here. He's in Tennessee,
Right. That's right.
and so he's trying to control everything out here.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that just, you see how easy it is for this thing to go longer and longer and longer.
Well,
So,
I'm going to tell you, this is just such a powerful conversation. It's a
definitely.
conversation that we could really have for another hour. So, Eric, tell us, when's your next seminar, or how people can get in contact with you if they want to just find out more information as it relates to them personally.
absolutely. So, the next seminar, I don't know that I have my schedule in front of me to have that planned, but I'm sure I have one just about every month. Or you can come and call to my office and set up an appointment. The phone number, 301-358-6664. You can reach me at Tyrone@TyroneLawGroup.com. You can go to TyroneLawGroup.com and say, hey, I heard you on the show.
And before we take our next break and final break, we have another caller.
Sure.
Hello, welcome to Sisters in Company Talking About It. May I help you?
Yes, I have a question for Eric Tyrone.
Sure.
I'm all ears.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
What's your question?
I would like to know if a co-owner or a joint owner is included when you say
Hello, welcome to Sisters in Company
Can you-
Talking About It. May I help you?
Turn off Listen Vision Live, please.
hello?
We can hear you better now.
Hello?
We're here. We can hear you better. What's your question?
I wanted to know if a co-owner or a joint owner, if a co-owner or a joint owner is the same as a beneficiary when you're dealing with an account such as stock.
If a co-owner and a joint owner, the answer is probably, but not always. And so if you have a person that is named as a joint owner, so you guys are both own it equally, the answer is probably. But sometimes there are states that have recently said that if person A and person B owns it, if person A put 100% of the assets in it and person B's name has just been put on it at the end, that they may be able to determine that is a probate asset. Some of it is pretty new. I'm still trying to get caught up on it, and so that's why I say, probably, but at least start down that path. Because if you at least have another name on there, there's at least an argument that can be made that this is not a probate asset.
Right.
Okay, great. Thanks for your call.
Thank you.
We need to let Eric Tyrone. We
Yeah.
thank you for
Thank you.
joining
Yes.
us. This was
Appreciate
great. I can't wait to read all of the comments.
Yes.
We appreciate you joining us, and we're gonna take about a 30-second break, and then we'll be right back.
Yes. Thank you all. Hope you make sure you're on listenvisionlive.com. I'm sorry.
Topics with our individual twists and talents.
We will present real stories, real solutions, and engage in real talk.
So we invite you to be our company every Sunday afternoon at 3:00 p.m. as we focus on transcendent thinking that will move you forward. You become the company you keep.
What company do you keep? Oh yeah, we are biological sisters by way of the south side of Chicago. So get ready to keep company with us and our guests as we talk about it. Welcome back to Sisters in Company Talking About It. Eric,
Wasn't that great?
Yes, that was
excellent.
awesome. Got me thinking about what I need to do. My
Yes.
next move. I'm going to
Yes.
take full advantage of this information.
Yes.
So we're going to move right into our next segment, which is what burns my soul. Let me just tell you, on Friday, I had an experience that, I'm not surprised that it happened, but I continue to be amazed that it happens. At work, a supervisor sent an email to another person and they were talking about my staff. And the email started out like this: I know this is not your circus or your monkeys. When I tell you my soul was on fire.
What?
Because for several reasons. One is for the obvious reasons that she was referring to minorities as monkeys.
My
Number
God.
two, that she put it in an email so that it could be seen. And number three, that this was not the first or the last time
Sound like
that,
an EEO case to me.
that this person felt comfortable enough
Wow.
to put in writing in a workplace and refer to some African Americans as monkeys. When I tell you I had to, earlier today Sharon was talking about, some stuff and I was a work in progress. This is how I knew I had reached a place of growth. It took everything in my soul not to call this person up and say, who the hell do you think you're talking about?
Yes.
But I knew
Yeah.
that if I reacted in such a way, it would no longer be about what she put in an email, but it would be more about how I responded to
Right.
what she put in an email. And so I did the right thing, and I'm happy to say that I did that. I did the right thing and just, ran that up the chain. And so I'm sure next week is going to be very, very interesting in terms of the repercussions of such foolishness.
Yes, and we're just in a climate where people just feel like they can say and do anything, and I'm sure many of you out there have stories on top of stories. And one story that comes to mind for me is I had to investigate a case where a lady sent another lady a meme, and at the time I didn't even know what a meme was, but the meme was, it had a monkey on it, and the monkey was clapping his hand like boo boo, and at the top it says, devil don't mess with me, boo boo. And I was just blown away that people are doing this kind of stuff at work and sending it via email. And then when you have a conversation with them, they want to flip the script and say that you're harassing them. And I said, in that particular situation, you can deal with that later, but right now we're here to talk about your behavior. And so, we all have to be very careful of how we get sucked in to the world of work and be mindful of our own behavior. And it's just like Sherelle said, as soon as you respond as a supervisor, or we respond, particularly as African Americans, it's no longer about what was done to us. They start looking at us as the problem. And so please make sure that this is not you that we're talking about out there.
Exactly right.
And being very careful and mindful, because we know that, dealing with people can be a challenge, and sometimes people can take you places that you don't really want to go. So be very mindful of how you're communicating and behaving at work.
And as a result of that, being the type of leader that I am, I had to give my team a pep talk and say, don't you ever let anybody take you out your space. We're going to continue to come to work. We're going to continue to do a great job. And there's going to be a time or two that we pick up the phone and this person is going to be on the other end. We will not engage in foolishness, and we will not be a participant in it. And so, it just kind of blew us for a day. But, we're back, and we're going to come in tomorrow, and we're going to be stronger than ever.
And that's right. And you have recourses at work. You just go up the chain, like Sherelle said, instead of getting yourself sucked in. Because some of these people have been around and they've been allowed to engage in this type of behavior for a very long time. And because we're running out of time, we have less than a minute. I can't really talk about what burns my soul, but it's going to really be connected with our conversation for next week about women. And my topic is about alpha women. Think about it. And just think about why that burns my soul.
So once again, we
Yes.
thank you for tuning in. We hope you not only learned something, that you had an opportunity to enjoy the show while you look at the Pro
Yes.
Bowl in the background on mute.
Yes, we love you
And
all.
We love you all.
Thank
and
you so much for calling in and joining us here today. And as always, we're interested in topics that you would like to discuss, and some people have already put some topics out there for me today for us to consider. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
And
have
you
a
can
blessed
follow us on
afternoon.
social media, Sisters in Company Talk About It, Instagram, Facebook, IG, all of those, Twitter. Keep in touch, and we do read all of the comments from the show. Thank you.
And don't forget to get your early bird tickets to the 3rd annual Woman Thou Art Great Women Sharpening Women Conference.
And I am your MC at that conference. You
Yes.
don't want to miss it.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you, everyone.